Good evening and welcome back to Sports Talk ATL. I am Chase Earl, joined by Alex. Lord, we had a lot of news in Braves country, which we touched on. Travis d'Arnaud options not being picked up. We talked about reworked contracts. But then, honestly, the biggest bomb, probably the most significant bomb, was Joe Jimenez is getting cartilage removed into his knee, which on the surface sounds like something he would be ready for the offseason. I have no idea. I'm going to learn more about this because I'm going to talk to a doctor about this situation. But he's going to miss 8 to 12 months, which means at best he's back around the All-Star break. At worst, he misses all of next season because of this injury. And that really opens up these two moves with Travis d'Arnaud and Joe Jimenez going down. Two big needs for the Atlanta Braves. Like the Braves in some form or fashion have to replace Travis d'Arnaud. It doesn't have to be an all-star guy. Maybe they just think Chadwick, maybe they do. Maybe they do. Maybe they don't. I'm not quite sure about that. And Drake Baldwin's obviously waiting in the wings. But you're in a lot of trouble, right, if Sean Murphy goes down, even with those two options. Like it's not an ideal scenario. You think they would like to bring in a little bit more of a proven commodity as insurance because it's such an important position. Now, I think you're fine with Murphy and Baldwin if both of those guys stay healthy, but listen, we've seen how injuries can just ravage a team, and just expecting everybody stay healthy, probably not very realistic. But now I really look at this bullpen as maybe one of the biggest needs, maybe the biggest need of this offseason, because you lose AJ Minter, or you don't lose him necessarily. You could re-sign him in free agency, but he's a free agent. Joe Jimenez probably out next season, or at least most of next season. And then you have Jesse Chavez, Luke Jackson also set to hit free agency, who probably aren't trying to bring back or you're trying to upgrade from. So that's four pretty critical pieces that you're without. Two guys that were two of your best relievers. And Jesse Chavez was a big part of this relief corps last year. So I look at this as the Braves are going to have to spend money. And when you look at why they might have parted ways with Travis d'Arnaud in a cost-cutting effort, this is a big reason as to why they did that.
Yeah. And the bullpen's one of those things that, like, it doesn't really come up that often during the regular season when you're like, thank God we did that. But during the postseason, that's when, all these arms really come in handy. So I honestly don't, it's a big deal. You can't ignore it. That's for sure. But also it feels like one of those things that, like, we can address it later if need be. Because I think AJ Minter coming back is almost a foregone conclusion if the Braves want him. That's, the hip surgery thing. That's something that's got to work itself out. But, from AJ Minter's comments, how the Braves usually operate, a little 1-year deal, kind of build up his free agent value again for his sake, feels like just what the doctor ordered. And then in that case, he's a high leverage guy that you can count on. But even then, the Braves still need another high leverage guy. Replacing Jesse Chavez, I mean, good story and all, but he, it's not gonna take a boatload of money to replace Jesse Chavez. But I think the Chadwick Trump thing also, I think they should be comfortable with him. Now, I don't think you should be comfortable with him. If Sean Murphy goes down. In that case, I think that's when you would see Drake Baldwin in a full-time starter role. But I think if you get rid of Travis d'Arnaud, you're paying Sean Murphy now. I think his salary went from 7, 8, or 9 million to like 14, 15, or 16. So it's a considerable increase. You're paying a guy that much money. Guy, I said yesterday, 2/3 of the games, 80% of the games, you're paying a guy. And I know catchers take a toll. It takes a toll on their bodies and everything like that. But, Sean Murphy's got to be better. And he would tell you that. And it starts with availability. And I think that they could get away with Trump. I still think, for my money, the easiest in terms of dollars and cents is the outfield. If you wanted to spend money in terms of an everyday basis, that's going to make the biggest impact is the outfield.
A lot of that depends on what Ronald Acuna Jr.'s availability is. I mean, listen, there's a lot of things that need to be taken into consideration that you don't really have answers to. You don't know if Sean Murphy is going to be healthy for all those games. So you have to have insurance plans in place for all these guys. Yes, I think they should have multiple outfielders, at the very least one starting caliber outfield. I don't think there's any doubt about that. We'll see if they can upgrade over Orlando Arcia, but that right now feels unlikely, especially if the Dodgers are heavy in on Willy Adames. So then you go to, where are you really going to spend all this money that you're saving? Well, the answer is the outfield, maybe getting that starting caliber outfield, and the bullpen. Listen, I think the bullpen is the most underrated piece to a championship caliber team. Yes, you can address it at the trade deadline because there's going to be multiple guys, but I think it's something that now that you're without potentially AJ Minter, and even if he comes back, you don't know what AJ Minter is. I mean, he was not the same guy last year, even when he was healthy. Now he's coming off surgery. Do I want him back on a 1-year deal? Absolutely. But he could be getting that like Jesse Chavez type money. I mean, it's going to be a little bit more than that, but you don't know what his role is. I'm not sitting there penciling him as a high leverage reliever next year for the Atlanta Braves, even if he is brought back. And I think Joe Jimenez absolutely has to be replaced. I think they go after one of the top arms. I would not be shocked if they go after one of the top arms that's available via trade. Devin Williams is out there for trade. A lot of people think he's going to be moved from the Milwaukee Brewers. That's a name to keep an eye on all of a sudden. I think they need to get a big guy, a Raisel Iglesias type guy, because this is a thing that they've invested a lot of money in over the last several years because it was something that was a problem in the past. And the reason they invested so much resources into doing it because they didn't want it to be a problem anymore. Now you got money to spend making all these cost-cutting moves. I think absolutely they'll be involved with some of the top reliever names. Maybe they don't go after Tanner Scott or someone that's going to require $50, $60 million, but I think they're going to be involved. And it could be a trade. We know Alex Anthopoulos loves a trade. There's plenty of guys that are going to be available. These guys get traded around, go from team every single season, and there's plenty, and there's a million guys on the trade market. And it may not be guys that we're really necessarily looking at, but they could end up being absolute stars. So there's a lot of options available there. I absolutely think it's a top priority for the Atlanta Braves. Now, really disappointing news on Joe Jimenez because he's been really good. He's definitely had his warts. We think about his last time we really saw him in an important game against the Mets, but I mean, this guy's been one of the more consistent setup men in baseball ever since he was traded over in a little bit of a rocky start there to begin his Braves career.
Yeah, it sucks. They just gave him a 3-year deal. Him and Pierce Johnson have been two of the best setup guys. And outside of the couple of stints that you mentioned, AJ Minter last season, those three right there were as rock solid as you could have hoped for. They got big holes. They got big holes at the back end of the bullpen. It sucks because that was something that I think Brian Snitker and a lot of Braves fans could have leaned on, regardless of what happens with the rotation, in the future. You could always lean on the bullpen because it was as stout. It was as good as any. The whole staff was as good as any last year. So it really does suck. And the Braves invested that 3-year deal in Joe Jimenez. So it all around sucks. I'm not sure what they're going to do. I still think that it's one of those things. If they do go out there and invest, maybe a 1-year deal for somebody, if that is possible, or somebody on an expiring contract, because you can't just forget about Joe Jimenez. What is he? He's on a contract for, it'll just be 1 year after this season. So, and Pierce Johnson's still under contract for another year. So I don't know what they'll do. That's an interesting one.
I'll tell you what they'll do. They're going to go out there. Maybe a 1-year deal, but they're going to go out there and get a big name.
They have a laundry list of things to do this offseason. But coming into the offseason, it felt like it was like boom, boom, boom. That's all we had to do, and it was going to be over. Now it's going to be busy. It's going to be active. We're going to be connected to guys. So, for us guys in this business, it's a terrible thing for the Braves. We love Joe Jimenez. We feel bad. It's obviously a huge loss for the team, but this is going to be a very exciting offseason because there's so many different ways Alex Anthopoulos can go.
I mean, they went out 2 years ago and got Kenley Jansen. They went out last year and made sure they re-signed the Joe Jimenezes and the Pierce Johnsons of the world, who they acquired at the trade deadline and other trades. So they're going to address this issue. This is not something that they're going to, and they're going to get someone significant, someone that they believe can be, either AJ Minter. And I do believe AJ Minter has a good chance, but they're going to be aggressive in fixing the bullpen. And there's a reason. It's just another reason why these cost-cutting moves that we've seen over the last few days are happening.
Makes you think Travis d'Arnaud coming back is less likely.
Yeah, I would say that highly unlikely because someone will pay Travis d'Arnaud $8 million. The catchers, there's not many out there in free agency.